Welcome back to Kari's Confessions, a nonprofit exec tells all. I'm Kari Anderson, principal with Incite Consulting. I've spent 25 years in the nonprofit sector in leadership roles with 7 organizations. Now, I provide coaching and consulting services to ensure that nonprofits like yours have the structure, systems, and practices to do your best work. Wherever I go, I continue to hear that nonprofit execs need a space to gather, to receive tools, feedback, and advice that encourages them to stay the course. It doesn't seem to matter if you're in a village of 182 or a metropolis of millions. Nonprofit work is both gratifying and lonely. I'm here to make sure you breathe, laugh, smirk, and get excited again about the important work that you do. Today, we're going to talk about creating a fund development plan for your organization. We'll define what it is and what it isn't, why it's important, and most importantly, how to do it. 3 takeaways for this podcast. 1, keep it simple. Let's just do one already. 2, understanding that a fund development plan truly prioritizes fundraising at your organization. And 3, the importance of involving the board in this planning process to ensure organizational accountability, top to bottom, regarding the importance of fundraising. But before we dig in, let's start with the current state of giving. The Giving USA 2024 report was released in June with 2023 data. Indiana University Lilly School of Philanthropy provided these key findings. So, individuals, bequests, foundations, and corporations gave an estimated $557.16 billion to U.S. charities in 2023. Total giving grew 1.9% in current dollars, reaching a new high by that measure. Nevertheless, growth in total giving did not outpace the higher than average 4.1% inflation rate. Adjusted for inflation, giving declined by 2.1%. The increase in current dollars was buoyed by the stock market and the GDP. Both performed better than many economists initially expected in 2023. Total giving has not yet surpassed the all-time inflation-adjusted high set in 2021. The longest running and most comprehensive report on the sources and uses of charitable giving comes from Giving USA, the annual report on philanthropy. It's published every year, right? And it's part of the Giving Institute. I highly recommend that you actually subscribe to this and any other additional information that comes from the Lilly School of Philanthropy. And no, I'm not paid to say that, right? It's just great data to be able to inform pieces with. So the news isn't so dire, right? We've been hearing kind of anecdotally the last couple of years that giving is down, but it's not down that much. And that underscores the reason right now, right, for us to consider developing a fund development plan, especially as we are starting into budgeting for 2025. The stats that I shared with you matter because they speak to the resilience of charitable giving after challenging times like the pandemic and a decline in giving in 2022, right? This is a big deal. It's really easy to start to get scared. It's easy to kind of wander back to scarcity mentality. But charitable giving is still really strong, right? It's also a reminder that nonprofits still have challenges ahead, and making sure that you're focused on a strong giving program, transparency with your funders, and the importance of authenticity in the work that you do. This is why planning and having an actual fund development plan, not just a plan in your head, is so incredibly important for your financial resiliency at your organization. So there's additional stats, like there's more and more research that speaks to the importance that donors have on seeing the impact of your giving. I get that as a donor. Plan helps to ensure that you're communicating with donors consistently to thank, to share impact, and to build connection to your cause prior to making the next ask, right? So a fund development plan isn't just about how we're going to raise our money and the different sources that we're going to pull those funds from. It's this 360 approach to making sure that we are cultivating, asking, and thanking. So tomato, tomato, right? I think about this reference sometimes when I'm thinking about fundraising plan versus a development plan. So kind of the same names, but different, right? Many organizations and nonprofits use those terms, fundraising plan, development plan, interchangeably, which in some ways is fair. But today I want to challenge the traditional way you think about fundraising work versus development work, and how this shift in thinking can benefit you and your organization. So, in its simplest form, fundraising is raising money for an intended purpose. When you were a kid, I'm sure you fundraised for your school, maybe Girl Scouts, Little League, all the things. When we shift gears to nonprofit development work, which is why we call it a fund development plan, not a fundraising plan, fundraising is much more complex. The word development is all about growth, advancement, and improvement. So when you think about creating a fund development plan, not a fundraising plan, it's more than just generating revenue. It's strategically thinking about how you can use fundraising as a means to build authentic and unique connections with those donors. It's a partnership all around aligning their philanthropic goals and passions with the direct work you're doing to make a difference in your community. So, based on everything I just shared, I would encourage you to build a fund development plan for your organization that goes far beyond the sheer dollars you need to raise. Here's more reasons why. So, a true fund development plan helps to create a culture of philanthropy, and it prioritizes fundraising at your organization. It's more than fundraising activities, and it creates a long-term strategy to achieve fundraising and organizational goals. Fund development plan ensures your funding is diversified, and it creates a path to get there if you're not there yet. Fund development plan connects your strategic plan so that goals are cohesive and in alignment with your overall organization's strategic priorities. A fund development plan provides a tool to connect and engage your board to help them better understand fundraising and how fund development fuels your organization, and how it empowers you to do the mission-driven work that you're all interested, passionate, and accountable for. It certainly guides your board fund development committee with actionable items and anticipated outcomes to monitor for success. I don't know about you, but I used to have a myriad of board members at several organizations that would come up with wild fundraising ideas they wanted me to tackle that were not at all in alignment with our mission, our strategic priorities, or our fund development plan. And that plan provided me a way to say no without ever saying no. True fund development plan creates an outline for connecting and engaging with donors that truly builds deep and meaningful relationships. It helps you avoid mission drift, or I would say even most importantly, chasing funding opportunities that are not in alignment with long-term goals for your organization or your brand. A fund development plan helps staff and board to track progress and troubleshoot when things aren't going according to plan, because sometimes that happens. So how do you do this, right? What's the first step? Determine who needs to be in the room for what pieces. It's easy to get too many folks in the kitchen, but it's also really important, right, to have a plan that involves buy-in with key staff and board members, right? So there's a balance in terms of who's there for the planning. Getting input at various stages and utilizing team members to think about goals, right, is essential. It's really important to start the planning process with an assessment. What do I mean by that? Think about the lines of a SWOT analysis, right? So thinking about current strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. And in doing so, you're going to capture a snapshot of your current situation and can use that as a starting point for creating goals and a direction of where you want to be from a fundraising perspective, right? Super important piece of the fundraising plan, right? A fund development plan is your case statement and the case for support. Let me describe what those are, right? And the case statement is a compelling argument to support your organization and programs. It's something that's written. It's not something that's off the cuff, right? And we eventually want everyone to be able to have a copy of this so that we're all speaking the same language, right? Board, staff, and volunteers. It's an internal document, right? The best part about this case statement is you can utilize or repurpose what's in there in writing proposals, speeches, and publicity for your organization. It's 2 to 10 pages long, right? And it's written with passion and a sense of importance that you bring to the issue, right? So some elements of the case statement: your mission, why you're around, goals. What specifically are you trying to achieve organizationally in support of that mission growth? Specific objectives, how you're going to achieve those goals, your history, your backstory, right? The structure, who's involved in order to move your mission forward, what your fund development plan is. This is a critical piece of that case statement because it helps to show others that your organization has a number of appropriate income streams that will enable it to fulfill its mission. In your case statement, you should have an elevator pitch. Sometimes it starts with, we believe that. Sometimes it has, we address this by. I love doing this as a board activity, right? And so when you're thinking about the importance of every board member being able to say the same thing, besides the mission, of course, oftentimes this is a great board activity at a board meeting. You set time aside on the agenda to discuss the pitch and have board members craft and practice messaging. In the case statement, you're able to map out funding opportunities, and you're also able to identify prospects and look at your base of supporters. Where do you need to grow? Where is it lacking? What partners can you identify? So as you're thinking about pieces and parts of today's podcast, remember, we want to keep this simple. 2, we want to make sure that your understanding of fund development plan prioritizes fundraising in your organization, that everyone understands the importance of this activity. And 3, that you're involving the board in the planning of this plan to ensure organizational accountability. Make sure to follow me on your favorite streaming platforms, including YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. For additional resources and tools, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can also check out my website at inciteconsultinggroup.com. Thanks again for joining me. Have a great week.